I'm always interested by people's views on the rise of wokeism, as you've described it many times when you've been interviewed, and its connections back to the CCP. To me, if I was looking to weaken an enemy, I'd make them fight amongst themselves, destroy their energy security self-voluntarily in many instances, and infiltrate a country that way first. How do you see those links? Do you see them as having links back directly to that movement?
I think, yeah, I think they're the most brilliant, cunning enemy the United States and the West has ever faced. We have about 300, at least pre-COVID, and we're building back up to it, about 350,000 students here. We had Confucius Institutes at all our elite colleges. And if 1% of them, and we think there was more, were actively appropriating technology or information, that's still 3,500 people, and they were taboo. When COVID came, the Chinese government on all of our campuses had issued sort of a talking points that here the United States is again, the yellow peril, its history of 19th century exclusionary racial laws against the poor Chinese. And this was all at the time when they were not answering any questions about COVID. In fact, they had banned all internal travel from Wuhan to every city in China, except Wuhan could fly into Los Angeles and JFK for about 2 weeks. And they sent thousands of people in here. And the same was true of Europe, why they wouldn't dare allow a person. So they're very brilliant. They play the woke card. They play the race card. And if you try to say, well, you people have a million Uyghurs, oh, no, we're trying to educate. They're very sophisticated and they're slick and they've mastered Western culture. And they pick and choose whatever element in the West they feel is compatible with Chinese centralist communism. And it's amazing that they are more astute students. If you look at military literature, and there's a big debate of the old fossilized admirals and generals with the big tanks, the big bombers, the $130 million fighters versus 50, 60,000 drones that cost $5,000 or $6,000. It can take. They are studying this very carefully, and they're weighing in on either side, and they're starting to. They always seem to weigh in on the side of the reformer or the dissident, brilliant people that the establishment and our countries feel are apostates, but they look at it disinterestedly and say, you mean in the Ukraine, we see all these thousands of drones that have revolutionized warfare. We don't have an entrenched elite like the carrier lobby in the United States with 13, $30 billion carrier groups that we could probably sink with 10,000 drones like that. So let's go the drone way, the biggest bang. And that makes them very flexible. You would think it would be just the opposite, that there would be a diktat coming down high and then they'd all have to fall in place. But when it comes to dealing with us, they're very flexible and innovative, and I find them very scary.
And we do see that with rising powers in military innovation, don't we? Saw it, of course, with the German Blitzkrieg movement and new ways of waging war. They used the sanctions of the Treaty of Versailles very effectively to train officers, and then leave the sort of the conscripts as the last thing and build the military and industrial complex. We see a little bit out of that out of the rising world as well. Iran with their drone technology, Russia the same, China the same. And you did touch on some of these concepts with your other book, The Dying Citizen, where you sort of talked about these concepts and the concept of the citizen being relatively new concept really in terms of the world's environment, but also some of these issues of globalization. I mean, it's so difficult to unpick in a short amount of time, but in one sense, the cynic in us thinks, if I was looking to push my ideology, globalization would be the way to do it. You saw all of that through the World Health Organization and COVID. The CCP message seems to be the one that's getting across globally. And I mean, has the West understood that, do you think? Do you think lawmakers in the West have understood that properly?
No, they haven't. What happened in the West was we woke up somewhere around 1990 at the turn of the millennium, and we found out that instead of in the United States, take our example of having a market or a consumer or an audience of 300 million, particular aspects of our economy had 6 billion. And there were people on the coast where all of our Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, MIT, Caltech, Citibank, JP Morgan, Hollywood, Silicon Valley, where all the money and the tech and the universities were. And people in the media, people in law, people in insurance, but especially people in tech and services and finance and investment, with these new markets, with offshoring and outsourcing, they made an amount of money that was staggering. $9 trillion of market capitalization in Silicon Valley, in an otherwise bankrupt state. But the people in the interior who were muscular, we always valued the most highly because they brought us our fuel, our food, our wood, our minerals, the muscular classes. But it was like, well, if we can get it cheaper from South America or Africa and Indonesia, will we place these people? So there was a kind of an ethos that followed that of disparagement. Well, these guys are losers. Joe Biden said they didn't code. Hillary Clinton said she wanted to shut down all coal in West Virginia. Obama called them clingers. Just the other day, the new vice presidential nominee said that rural Minnesota was nothing but rocks and cows, deplorables, irredeemables. John McCain called them hobbits and crazies. So that divide is really shaken. And you saw it in Britain the other day with the riots. You have that same dichotomy in your country. We have it here, the MAGA phenomenon. And part of that problem is, although they're not the majority of the population, they control, in our country, Hollywood, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, professional sports, entertainment, foundations, K through 12, and universities. So they have the influence, and they're kind of cosmopolitan in the sense of, or maybe better, utopian. They believe that they have so much money and education and credentials, and they have such clout now globally, all of them, and they feel almost like platonic guardians, that they know that it's better for us to accept 3 genders. It's better for us to outlaw natural gas. It's better for us to have no borders. It's better for us to be woke. It's better for us being the lab rats. They're never subject to the consequences of their failed ideology. And I don't know where this is coming to, but it seems to be coming to a head in Europe, in Britain, and in the United States, that the so-called deplorables are finally waking up and saying, these people, we don't want this secular, globalist, utopian, arrogant religion anymore. We don't want it because it's given us huge debt. It's given us a fertility rate here in the United States from 2.1 down to 1.6. It's destroying the nuclear family. It's warping women's sports. Everything it touches is an on-Midas touch. And we're tired of it. We don't want these guardians to do it, to do this to us anymore. And so it's coming to a head. And it's been just as an editorial, it's been fascinating to watch this election where when you control the media and all these institutions, we were told for 3 years, and as a writer, I was attacked, but the Wall Street Journal was attacked. If you say that Joe Biden is non compos mentis, you're a racist, or you're an ageist, or an ableist. And then the narrative became, well, wait a minute, he's going to take us down to defeat. He's 6 points behind. Get rid of him. But we can't get rid of him because we don't know how to get rid of him. So they went to him and said, you can remain the president if you agree to step down. You're fit to be president, but you're not fit to be our candidate. And then the narrative changed. All of a sudden, as we told you, Joe Biden was not physically or mentally able. And now Kamala Harris, she's brilliant. We just never really appreciated her. So the narrative changed so radically. And for us in America, we were told that the primaries counted and the delegates counted and 15 million people had voted for Biden. But to have a bunch of people that were the guardians of democracy just go in a back room like it was 1850 and say, Joe, you're going to lose, and you're going to lose our agenda, the woke agenda, you're gone. And if you don't going to be gone, we're going to strangle you and say you can't be president. We're going to 25th amend you. And they gone. And then they said, well, now what do we do about Kamala? That was his insurance policy. Well, we're going to reinvent her. So now the new talking point for today in all the media is that she's brilliant. She's a woman. She's a person of color. She's dynamic. And that's where we are. It's very frightening how these narratives it's almost Orwellian, memory hole one day and then group speak the next.